Okay, so I'm going to be presenting on Ted Kaczynski. Ted was born on May 22nd in 1942. He was born in Chicago, Illinois. He is a white man of Polish descent. That is, his parents, his mother and father, were both Polish Americans. He later became known infamously as the Unabomber. So Ted grew up in a challenging environment. His parents, especially his mother, were described as strict. His childhood was marked by isolation and a sense of being different from his peers, and I think these early experiences kind of contributed to the troubled upbringing, like fostering feelings of alienation and resentment that would kind of later shape his life. So after excelling academically, which he did, he skipped the 6th grade. He went to Harvard, was accepted by the age of 16. He was very smart. He earned a degree from Harvard University in mathematics, and later he earned a PhD. He began a brief academic career teaching at the University of California, Berkeley. However, soon after that, he kind of left society behind. He moved to a remote cabin in Montana, and that is where his decision was made to kind of wage a violent campaign against what he viewed as the destructive forces of modern technology and industrial society. So Ted's methods were pretty horrific. Over nearly 2 decades, he orchestrated a bombing campaign. He targeted individuals connected to technology and industry. That resulted in 3 deaths, dozens of injuries. He wrote a manifesto in 1995 called The Industrial Society and Its Future. This outlined his ideology and garnered widespread attention, and it actually ultimately led to his capture in 1996. So Ted was, as you can see here, this is from a postal inspection service. It was like a reward for his capture. This was a drawing that was made. He was eventually caught and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he spent the remainder of his life. He died on June 10th, 2023 at the age of 81. So just last year. And a lot of Ted's life is kind of examined through the lens of his criminal actions. And it kind of raised important questions about the impacts of trauma, isolation, and radicalization in society. So his criminal activities, let's talk about that for a minute, began in the late 1970s, continued into the mid-1990s. His campaign primarily targeted individuals associated with modern technology and industrial society. Over the course of that 17 years, he is responsible for a series of bombings across the U.S., which claimed 3 lives and injured 23 other people. His victims were carefully chosen. They were professors, researchers, there were some airline executives. In 1985, Ted killed Hugh Scruton. He was the owner of a California computer store, and in 1993, he claimed the life of John Hauser, which was a man who was connected to a technology-related firm. His rationale for targeting these individuals stemmed from his belief that technological advancement was dehumanizing and damaging to society. So in his mind, they represented the very forces he opposed. Anybody who kind of furthered the technological advances, or he saw, contributing to that in any way, those people were against what he believed. So Ted employed various methods to carry out these attacks. He's often sent homemade bombs through the mail. The first one was sent in 1978, and he kind of continued with that campaign, here and there, creating a pattern that kind of demonstrated a more calculated approach. The devices varied in complexity, but they were designed to inflict maximum harm. One of the most chilling aspects of Ted's crimes was the anonymity he maintained for years. It wasn't until he published his manifesto, The Industrial Society and Its Future, in 1995 that authorities began to kind of connect the dots. He demanded that his manifesto be published, threatening further violence if his demands were not met. He also said that he would kind of quit his campaign of violence if they published it. And that kind of led to increased media attention, and it ultimately played a big role in his capture. In 1996, Ted was arrested at his cabin in Montana, where investigators found the evidence that linked him to the bombings. Some of those things just included materials, that he used to construct the devices. His trial was in 1998, and it revealed a pretty complex man whose kind of intellectual ability was kind of overshadowed by his violent actions. Ted ultimately pleaded guilty to all the charges. He avoided a death penalty trial and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and that is where he remained for the rest of his years. He did continue to write and communicate his radical ideas from prison. Again, he died June 10th, 2023 at the age of 81 and left behind a pretty controversial legacy. It kind of challenges us to reflect on the intersections of ideology and like mental health and the impacts of modern society. Next up, we're going to talk about the criminal theory that is attached to Ted Kaczynski. So when we examine his actions, we're kind of faced with some difficult questions about how society handles dissent and kind of the extremes to which ideology can drive individuals. So his life serves as a reminder of the dangers kind of posed by that isolation and radicalization and the, kind of the anger against societal structures. And so let's discuss this theory a little bit more. So the social control theory. This theory is primarily developed by sociologist Travis Hershey. He lived from 1935 to 2017. He explored, the theory explores why individuals conform to societal norms and how some people avoid engaging in criminal activities. And so this theory is considered a macro level theory, and that's because it examines societal structures and their influence on individual behavior. It states that our bonds to society, such as family, school, community, how they play a large role in controlling our impulses and guiding us towards conformity. And kind of at the heart of that theory is the idea that strong social bonds lead to a lower likelihood of deviance. According to this theory, a person commits crime because their bonds to society are weak or absent. And when individuals lack strong attachments to family or community or their social institutions, or when their commitments to their conventional values and norms are kind of diminished, they may feel less constrained by societal expectations, and this lack of connection reduces their motivation to conform, kind of increases the likelihood of engaging in this kind of deviant behavior. So essentially, without the protective influence of strong social ties, people may succumb to these impulses and choose to break the law. In social control theory, there is two things that we can look at: attachment and commitment. They're just the two. There's several, but they're two key elements that help explain why individuals conform to societal norms and avoid deviant behavior. So first, we're going to look at attachment. And attachment refers to the emotional bonds that individuals have with others, such as family, friends, mentors. Strong attachments kind of foster that sense of belonging and accountability to somebody other than yourself. And when people feel connected to those around them, they're less likely to engage in behavior that could harm those relationships. It also acts as a deterrent against deviance, because individuals do not want to disappoint or hurt the people they care about. The second thing was commitment, which relates to the investment that a person has in conventional activities such as education, career, and family life. And when individuals have significant stakes in these areas of their life, they're more likely to adhere to societal norms to protect what they have built. For instance, someone who is committed to their education or career is less likely to take risks that could jeopardize their success. How this kind of relates to Ted is that in the case of Ted, we can see how a lack of strong attachment and commitment contributed to his criminal behavior. Ted experienced a troubled upbringing. He was characterized by strict parenting, social isolation. His emotional bonds with his family were really weak, and he often felt alienated from peers. And that's kind of because when he was in 6th grade and he tested so high in his IQ and they moved him up, he was kind of made fun of and isolated from his friends that he had previously, and he was with this older crowd and they didn't respect him and they made fun of him. And he was kind of in this in-between area where he wasn't really mature enough to be with these older kids and they didn't accept him, and he also couldn't be with his younger friends anymore because he was too smart and they had moved him away from those people. By the age of 16, he had graduated, was accepted into Harvard, and was shipped off to Harvard to attend school there, thereby leaving his family and any other friends that he may have had and anybody he had these relationships with. And so he really never had a chance to connect or form bonds that he needed. not with friends, not with family. This kind of detachment likely kind of diminished the influence of social norms that would typically deter someone from engaging in violence. And Ted's commitment to conventional societal structures was really absent. Like, while he had academic achievements, he rejected the mainstream society, and he left society, and he kind of retreated into this really kind of solitary existence. Living in a remote cabin in Montana. So this withdrawal eliminated his investments in community, family, career, made him really more susceptible to radicalizing beliefs, and ultimately led to his violent actions against individuals he perceived as part of the problem that he opposed. Ted's weak attachments and lack of commitment to societal norms illustrate kind of how these elements of social control theory can contribute to deviant behavior. It highlights the importance of social bonds in preventing crime. So, two other things that we could say may have been involved as far as theories go with Ted, things that could apply, where I found the strain theory kind of stuck out, and so did labeling theory. Strain theory was developed by Robert Merton, and it posits that societal pressures and the inability to achieve culturally approved goals can lead individuals to resort to deviant behavior. When we think about Ted, his radical beliefs about technology and industrial society suggested that he felt maybe alienated from the mainstream culture, and possibly there was strain there as he struggled with societal expectations. His actions can be seen as a response to the frustration he felt regarding his inability to affect change through conventional means. Labeling theory, because it kind of focuses on how being labeled as deviant can influence an individual's self-identity and behavior, and while maybe that labeling didn't occur until after he started his kind of campaign, he still was seen as a loner and as somebody who is different from the people around him for most of his life growing up. So that could have contributed to it. His rejection of societal norms and his eventual identification as the Unabomber could have reinforced his deviant identity. And once labeled, he may have embraced that deviance as part of his self-concept, which led him to act out in ways that aligned with his perceived identity. So thank you. Those were that's my project on Ted Kaczynski and the social control theory. Thank you.